Hola, welcome to the Birth Neoterist space. I am your host, Sabia Cashmere Wade, if you didn't know my middle name. But of course I'm like black, so it's not spelled like regular. It's spelled MIR at the end. It's a thing. Anywhoosies. I have one of my favorite people here today, Mystique. Mystique, introduce yourself however you feel fit today.
Yes. So my name is Mystique or Iya Mystique. Pronouns they, she. What do I do? I'll just say I'm a full spectrum birth worker because I feel like I do most of all the things, experience in, just full spectrum birth work, birth, abortion access, reproductive justice, educator, researcher, lactation, which is definitely my jam, plant medicine, a lot of things, childbirth education, newborn care specialist. It's a long receipt, I do the things that I'm listening. I've been in the game for like, I think this year will be 6 years, maybe seven. But as far as like community work, I literally have been doing it for like over 10 years before I came into this work. I was a therapist and I'm big on mental health advocacy for Black, queer, and trans folks and all individuals who are from marginalized communities. So I consider myself like a retired therapist because, mental health and the barriers there, that battle, I was like, I can't do this. I can't do this. I don't have a voice.
hmm
I can't find my voice. And I found my voice in birth work. Um,
hmm
kind of had the signs of like, my clients, well, I was a therapist, were postpartum in their postpartum stage, or they're trying to link to getting, abortion access, um,
hmm
reproductive justice,
It's
education.
all intertwined, right?
It
Like it
was just
never, yeah.
intertwining, just
hmm
moving and grooving. And yeah. And then just fell in love with lactation because my beauty and like my journey in lactation was both beautiful and ugly. And I embraced that because life is life, and that's what happens, especially
hmm
lactation, as I call it. Um,
hmm
so yeah, that I feel like I missed a lot, but it's okay. It's the general gist of who I am.
So today we're going to talk about midwifery.
Mhm.
And we're gonna get into some things like the experience of being a Black person in midwifery as a student, as a pathway to like, and also like your choice around midwifery and doing the work, or maybe opting out of the work, right? In
Right.
that sense. So I'll start with one of the things, and I've said it many times in this space, is like I definitely thought when after like being a doula for about 3 years or so, if I remember correctly, I was like, okay, my next step is being a midwife, like naturally, right?
Mhm.
I was like, naturally, this is what I want to do, and that urge came from being a doula, right? Having some limitations in doula work, wanting to create access for Black folks, people of color,
Mhm.
to have access to home birth or have access to more holistic care, to have access to all these things, right? And, you know, having those hopes and dreams and everything was like what motivated me to go in the midwifery direction. But what turned me around after some time was like the reality of one, my mental health was trash.
Mm.
It was trash. Like it
Yeah.
was so bad. And the things that contributed to that was like having to pay for school out of pocket
Mhm.
and also having to do a full-time doula practice to maintain myself, midwifery school bills, whatever the case is.
Mhm.
Um, being, in a space where there wasn't a lot of people that looked like me.
Mhm.
Um, you know, being in a space where like my preceptor at the time was like, she's so cool and everything, but her clientele wasn't necessarily the clientele that I would see myself working with, if that
Right.
makes sense.
Right.
Um, and it was just like the thing that really like did me in amongst like the hardship of paying for school and all that was like there also was like this idea that like this is just what you do. This is just how you get into the work. And so the question I had to ask myself was like, at what cost, right? Like, am I going to be able to do this 4-year process, maybe additionally more years,
Mm-hmm.
um, under this type of stress? Like, am I going to be able to be this exhausted, right? And like for me, especially as someone who has like chronic illnesses and things like that, I was like, I don't think I can be up for 3 days and safely deliver someone's baby.
Right.
Like, I don't think I can, like,
Right.
right? Like, I can't, even though I know sometimes that's part of the environment, that's part of the expectation.
Right.
So I chose to opt out of it because I was like, I don't know. I don't think at the end of this, I'm going to be okay.
Right.
I might be a midwife, but I might not be okay. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Like,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
so I would love for you to talk about like your journey,
Ooh.
like what brought you into midwifery and kind of where you stand now.
Yeah. So mine was like both of my grandmothers were midwives. Okay. And I loved hearing their stories, seeing the pictures of like the babies they, brought into the world, all that. And I was like, okay, yeah, I see it. I can see myself doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And then getting into birth work, I had the usual call that most Black folks in birth work have is, I grew up with a family of midwives. So my grandmother was a midwife. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
yes, that's my story. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna be a midwife. And everybody's like,
Mm-hmm.
yes, Mystique, you'll be perfect. We need you, all this great stuff. Entered midwifery school. And I will say for me, I was in the worst health status of myself. Like it brought on
Mm-hmm.
chronic illnesses. It made me become a disabled person. And navigating through that while in school, and I'm like, well, this is part of the journey. This is what they tell me, this is what they say,
Mm-hmm.
this is the sacrifice. But me being me and knowing who I am, I discovered more of myself going through school saying, if it does not bring me joy and if I have to sacrifice literally my whole entire life and self, whereas to the point that I don't know if I'm going to make it another year, I can't do it. I can't do this. And
Mm-hmm.
I was fighting against quitting. I was like, no, I can't do this. And I'm hearing people like, no, you can't quit. We need you. We need you. And I'm like, all
Mm-hmm.
right, I got to keep going. But then, thankfully, my midwifery mentor was like, we're going to have a sit down and send me your CV. And then she was like, tell me why you want to be a midwife. And I'm telling her all the things. And she was like, this sounds like this is more of you um fulfilling a manifestation of others instead of
Mm-hmm.
manifesting what is your true purpose, in like you're trying to fulfill other people's purposes
Mm-hmm.
through their trauma and their need. And it's okay to feel like, we are needed because we're human. And
Mm-hmm.
you're this beautiful person who is like, I want to make sure, I want to save my community. I want to fight the good fight. I want to be that midwife to show up and say, I can be Black and queer, non-binary, coming from different cultures, da 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 da. But it does not feel like, from what you're describing, you are meant to be a midwife for yourself, and it does not align with what you need to do. And then when she saw my CV, she cussed me out in a sense. She didn't really cuss me out, but she fussed me
Yeah.
out really and was like, why are you here? You need to be teaching classes. And I was like, what? She's like, you have always been an educator. Why do you not feel like you are not an educator and a researcher? Because from your
Mm-hmm.
CV and your experience, you need to be on the other side. You need to be over here with me, mentoring
Mm-hmm.
and teaching classes. And I was like, well, I've been told. And she was like, let me guess, you've been told by white women these are the standards. You have to serve all these years, and you
Mm-hmm.
have to be this midwife for like decades to ever provide any experience or any knowledge to those who want to be midwives. She was like, Mystique, you are already a midwifery instructor. And I was like, okay, yeah, but, and she was like, we no, we're going to realign you where you need to be. And so she was like, but it's not my decision, it's yours. So did a little more digging and reflection, because she's a great mentor. She was giving me exercises, homework, all the things. And then I made the decision that I had to drop out of school, because it got to the point that not only is affecting my health, it's affecting my family. I'm not able to have the energy to spend time with my child or my partner. Finances, like you said, like trying to figure out how to make ends meet. And we are not privileged to, I'm not privileged to be that taking care of house,
Mm-hmm. You
wife,
gotta work.
house. I gotta
Yeah.
work. I gotta work. I'm not like what I've seen, most white
Mm-hmm.
women, their husbands are like 6-figure income, so they can do it. They have the
Mm-hmm.
nanny, they have the support, they can do it. And then I'm seeing in my eyes other folks who, not just in my cohort, in other schools, suffering. Like, to the point, it's like we're dropping like flies, and the rest that are holding on, it's like they feel it's too late to stop. So when I was seeing that, I was like, okay, I have to wipe my hands clean. I have to stop. I'm not
And
going
I
to.
think too, like one of the things that I love the word that you use the word like quitting, because I
Mhm.
think like a lot of time people are like, I can't quit,
You
you
can't
know, like
quit.
I can't quit. There's not a thing I can do. And like sometimes you can, and
Yes.
sometimes it's the best thing for you, right? Like to be like, actually, this is not for me. Like I've tried, right? And like how you get to your destination, whatever that destination may be, is sometimes trying things and be like, this works, this doesn't work. I like this, I like
Exactly.
that. Like this is how it works. But I definitely feel like that understanding that pressure of like, I've publicly announced that I'm aiming to be a midwife. And
Right.
now that's become a part of like how people see me, especially
Mm-hmm.
in this work of reproductive justice. And they're
Yes.
like, you know, they're expecting me to carry the torch. And then and now I'm like stepping down, like what does that feel, right? Like it is not even stepping down, I'm just stepping into the next iteration of myself.
Right.
And like what does that look like? But I would love to know when you talked about like, you know, being at your worst physical state, your worst like, you know, like iteration of yourself and health and all that kind of stuff. What factors do you think, like what main factors were contributing to that as, you know, as a midwifery student, as a Black midwifery student, like,
I would say more so it was my mental health. It was more so realizing, and it's no blame to the school, it's just the system. Realizing, one, I'm being taught by somebody who does not look like me, does not come from me, but you're telling me my knowledge, the knowledge that you're telling me is coming from my ancestors who did this. It was stolen.
mm-hmm,
It was
mm-hmm,
stolen. It was a lot of and a lot of people don't know how it was stolen. They don't know that it was history of white doctors, male doctors, and white women who were their nurses coming into our communities,
mm-hmm,
forcing grand midwives to retire. And one of them was my grandmother, but she decided, okay, I can't quit. So ancestral trauma and my mental health, and then finances is a big thing. Like, I wish we lived in a world where money wasn't an issue, we could barter
mm-hmm,
community. That's in my world. I don't know how it's going to happen. I know it's going to happen one day wherever I'm
mm-hmm,
meant to be, but right now we need money. um
mm-hmm,
Getting noted, and thankfully we rent from a place where they give us second chances or resources or whatever.
mm-hmm,
The resources are slim pickings, let's be honest. We're dealing with rent. I'm dealing with, we're dealing with our child care stuff as far as his health. He's disabled. We're
Mhm.
dealing with a lot of things that it's like finances. So it weighed a toll even more on my mental health. Then all of a sudden it transformed into physical. I'm getting high blood pressure. I'm borderline diabetic. I'm all of a sudden to the point that my body is feeling pain, and it's chronic pain from emotional, mental, like
Mhm.
body is feeling what I'm feeling. And it was, in a sense, I was like, I can't keep doing this. So it was just like mental and emotional, like fatigue and wellness that was
Mhm.
lacking, and finances, because let's be honest, that we're paying out of pocket. And
That's where I was like, wait, I have to, how am I remember that, like when I had that, because like the way that midwifery school is set up, understandably so, in a sense of like people have babies when they have babies, right?
yeah.
But like the way that it's set up is like obviously you have to like be present for so many births and so many things and blah blah blah, get your experience, which obviously is necessary.
Mhm.
But like you can't have no regular job.
No.
Like you can't have a 9 to 5. You can't even have a 9 to 2. You can't have none of that because you have to show up. You have to be with your preceptor for prenatals, for this, for that. You have to
Mhm.
be for birth, like be there for birth. So really the only thing that fits into it is going to be doing doula work, right? Because you have more flexibility. But then it's like doula work, as we know, is like you show up at this one, you're doing overnights for
Exactly.
postpartum, but then you gotta get up, you leave the postpartum, go home, probably take care of your kid, and then go to your preceptor. Like it's just like, bro,
And then
we're
you got
like,
to fit in studying. You got papers, you got exams. What? You got
and not only
projects.
do you have to fit in all those pieces, but for a lot of Black and Indigenous people of color who are in this space, right? Who really founded this work,
Hmm.
you got to fit in time for fundraising.
Because how is the educate, and it's they I know folks are gonna like, well, there's scholarships. Well, here's the thing. Everybody doesn't get a scholarship.
And the
Like,
scholarships, like, and this is no shade to nobody who brings out a
right.
scholarship, but like one of the things that like when I think about the future of midwifery, especially for people of color, is like a scholarship is great.
Yeah.
Yes, agreed. But if it's only a scholarship for 1 year or one semester, then how the next one gonna be covered, right? Like it's like it to me, it makes more sense to really fund someone's pathway through the whole entire
Yes,
school,
exactly.
right? Because like by the time you get the funding for that one space, you're still doing the fundraising for the next time,
Exactly.
right? So I think it's like, things that people don't think about. Like it's not just the school, it's the sustaining of staying in the school.
Yes.
It's the sustaining of your mental health, your family, the this, the that. Like, and this is not like to discourage, but I think it's like a real conversation of like
That needs to be had
why
because
people
it's
may
not talked
choose,
about.
yeah, why people may choose to opt out. And I think as, especially as a Black doula,
Mhm.
there is obviously so much systemically wrong, so much, the statistics, all of this, and you feel this ongoing pressure to be like, I should be a midwife.
Right.
Like, even if I don't want to be a midwife at this point, like I
Right.
should be because I know that I could be helpful. But it's like, I've seen so many midwives, specifically Black midwives, some who are like great, they come out of school, they're great.
Yeah.
But I've also seen so many where they have to like recover.
Same.
And some people don't even have the time to recover, right? So they go right into working and they're still dealing with the damage
Mm-hmm.
of sometimes working with preceptors that don't understand them, are racist within themselves. You know
Yes.
what I mean? Like there's all these things. It's so
Like,
much.
luckily I found, my thing was, I felt like everything was aligned because I found the only Black midwife that practiced where I'm here in Florida, in Jacksonville area, because everybody is white. Like, I mean, white, racist, mixed
Yeah, it's
reviews.
Florida.
It's Florida. Come on.
Mhm,
But
mhm.
I was like, oh, I even found a Black. I'm thinking everything is in a line, and then here comes, how am I gonna pay for second year? How? How am I gonna do this? And luckily I had a previous scholarship that was paying for it, but money was running out. And then my partner is picking up 2-3 jobs, and he's trying to kill himself to keep the lights on and make sure we're not evicted, and then make sure we actually have food. Like it was a whole mess. And even he came to me, was like, are you really happy? Like, babies is your thing, lactation, reproductive justice, all that's your thing. But are you like happy with what you're doing? And I'm lying to him and myself, like bags in my eyes, dark circles. I'm like, but I have to do this. I have to. And he's like, okay, I support, but it's just the like you said, it's just factoring every single thing. And it's not to tell folks not to be midwives, it's to give them a real talk and a raw, unfiltered view. Because don't get me wrong, it's beautiful. The fight is beautiful, especially as a collective. And seeing elders, they used to do this back in the day, and they're passing on the torch. But you have to really prepare yourself for a lot of things. Like, even my midwifery mentor was like, went through this and that, and people, like, there are folks who went through divorces, miscarriages, people who were pregnant, or they just had a baby and they're dealing with postpartum depression. Like, it's a lot. It's a lot. It really is. And it's unfortunate that, like you say, it's not the school, it's the system, it's how it's set up. It's all these like protocols and standards and policies that are put in
Oh
place
my God,
that,
I can't even get into,
ooh,
I didn't even get, that was one of
ooh,
the things that was on my brain. I'm like so into what you were saying.
ooh.
But like one of the other things I was going to point out too is like, um, yes, obviously getting through midwifery school is a whole process, but also testing is a whole process. Like the cost.
Oh my goodness. I think that's probably what that's my answer, because I was like, ain't no way. It costs what? And I was
You're like,
like,
I'm done. I'm finally done. But now I
I'm
have to
done.
like try
I'm
to get the
like,
money together for the testing.
that's wild. It's wild. And I'm like, here I am. Like, I'm like, oh, like dealing with stuff to get like my IBCLC. I'm like, oh, okay, it costs like a couple of hundred. Okay, I can do that. I can get that. To sit for a midwifery exam, like, I had all the questions. Like, people were laughing at me. I'm like, what is this for? Like, what, like, how? And it's like, even I see folks raising money, like you said, fundraising. That's exhausting in itself.
That's a job. People
That
get
is a
paid to
whole
fundraise.
job.
like, like that's a job. So I have a question for you. So when we think about the future of like the school process for midwives, especially midwives of color, especially Black folks, what do you want that future to include?
To be honest, I've seen, I feel like, as far as Black midwifery, I'm seeing that we need to take a page out of what I see the Indigenous midwives doing. They're educating their community. They're connected. They're like, you ain't got the money, we'll raise the funds for you. Or
Mm-hmm.
do, like, you can barter. And I feel like that'll be a beautiful thing. I know, I'm not sure how that will work, but I feel like if we had more community-based midwifery schools, from folks
Mm-hmm.
who actually have a social justice lens, from folks who actually been there, done that, have been on food stamps, have been on WIC, have suffered from postpartum depression, are queer and trans, are coming from polyamorous and open
Mm-hmm.
open relationships, or a non-traditional family dynamics, like all the things, from who are disabled. That's a big one. That is that is huge.
Mm-hmm.
Because disability access is like, it's non-existent. Like, are we gonna talk about how people are dealing with chronic pain or neurodivergent? Like,
Mm-hmm.
so I really feel that, however that is looked, and I feel that this next wave of midwives who are sticking to it, more power to y'all. Who are sticking to it are going to be the ones to create that space. And I feel like that's why a lot of them are like, I can't quit. But I'm like, I get that. I understand. I had to, because I was like, it's blocking my blessings. It's blocking my blessings. It's
No,
blocking.
for sure. Like when I decided like this was not the step for me,
Right.
the ADC came. Everything came, like my everything opened up because I had made a
Yes.
choice that was based in what I really need to do for myself.
It's just, I really feel that would be like a beautiful future. Like I said, I feel like this next wave and generation of midwives here, not just Black, just the white people of color, because now everybody's like, oh, this is fucked up over here. We're gonna fix this. Okay. So I feel like this set of midwives are the ones that's going to create those safer spaces, and is going to say, I'm not going to let you deal with or suffer what I had to deal with. And, it's going to be a long fight. I'm going to be standing there fighting with y'all. Don't get it wrong. I'm going to be there with y'all. I'm just won't be a midwife. I'm a spiritual midwife because I'm a E5 priestess. That's as close to midwifery I'm going to get. But I'm going to be there fighting with y'all, marching, all that stuff. But I really feel like that will happen. We're just in that place of, it's a battle. It's gonna happen. I feel it in my spirit. It's gonna happen. We're gonna be elders. We're gonna be tired, but we're gonna be rested though, because we know better. But yeah, I feel like that's what could show up to be, in a sense, so that the new generation of those who want to become midwives create different programs, because we got the we got the nurse midwifery, and we got the community. But now it's coming to like, we're going to have a mix of both, because I've talked to nurse midwives in their school, and I was like, why can't we do that here? But that's another episode. But anyway, but yeah, like I feel like it'll be like a new wave of, I hate to sound so cliche, but of like hope and love and empowerment, but for real, like actually show up. Because we got elders that they passed on all they can pass, and they deserve to rest. And that's another thing. I was like, I'm not gonna be there. I'm gonna still work, but I'm gonna be like resting. I'm gonna be resting. I'm not catching babies. If I'm 69, 70, it's gonna be somebody else doing that for me.
For real. And it's like, even, I think like when I think, like I always said to myself, like, it's not that I don't ever want to be a midwife ever in life, but I would have to do it in a time where I know that it's not going to put me at a deficit. Like, even when I know, like, even if I was to be like a practicing midwife, I don't have to take so many clients to fulfill my financial. Like, I can do one birth a month. I could do like, because that's like how I would want to practice.
Yeah.
So that I can be well, right? Like when I show up, and like, just want to be well. A couple more questions for you. So what advice would you give someone who is kind of on the line of, should I continue? Should I, what advice would you give for that person?
I would tell them to take a page from my book and not do it because everybody else says you need to become it. We need you. The community is going to need you regardless. However
you show up.
However you show up, educator, researcher, if you want to do just lactation, if you just want to do childbirth, if you just want to focus on food security and, dismantling food, whatever the case may be, like show up what is aligned for you, and like check, I call it like the imposter in alignment, because we're all about aligning ourselves, and that's great, but align it to an actual purpose that brings you joy and is not like, you're not a sacrifice. I get the but I know some people are gonna side eye me about this, but Black folks need to stop being sacrificed. We've been a sacrifice since our folks were brought here. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's, and we got to stop that. And it's like ingrained in our DNA and our bloodline that we got to sacrifice to show up and show that we are here and committed. Just show up. So I say, don't do it for others. Literally do it for yourself. And do not feel bad or, you know, have this sense of like, I failed my community. Because you may have that thought. I might be speaking from experience because I was like, I'm failing my community, but then your community is going to show up and be like, I support you. I love what you're doing. Like, keep educating,
Mm-hmm.
whatever the case may be, whatever your community sees you, has seen you show up as. Like, don't feel guilty about it. Like, if you don't really want to do it, it's fine. If you want to take a pause, that's okay. If you really want to do it and you're suffering, you got to sit down and talk with yourself. Like, seriously, like, you have to
For
say,
real. And it's
I
hard to
really,
disconnect from that level of
ooh,
urgency,
ooh,
right?
yes,
Because there's like a level of urgency when all you're hearing is the statistics that are happening, the deaths that are happening, the complications that are happening in our communities. And it's easy to really get wrapped up in like, and I think this pressure comes in any space that you're in, educator, midwife, doula, whatever. Especially just when you're Black. I
yes,
think that's the through line. Is like because of this urgency, because you see what's going on, you hear what's going on. It's like you you adjust yourself to that urgency and you just push and you just push and you just push. But then it becomes like this. We at least for me, one of the things that I've had to practice is like I cannot save everyone.
mm-mm.
That is not, I can't do it. Like there is never gonna be, I'm never gonna have enough energy. I'm a human. Like I
Yes,
can't like I literally cannot do 100 births. I can't do I literally am human. And like in order for me to be human, I have to also trust that other people in my community are doing their work,
yes,
right? Like
yes,
I can't just think that this is on my back because that's how it feels. Like it's
yes.
like I need to be the midwife. I need to be the whatever because it's on me. And I think like that's the pressure that we carry, whether we name it or not. And it's like sometimes it's like part of sustainability in this work is taking rest. Because this
Ooh,
work is hard. It's like because not only are, the challenge for us that makes it like a double hitter is like we're working on this thing, but we're also impacted by this thing. We're
yes,
not like separate from, it's not like we're like, oh, I'm gonna go save the squirrels, but I'm not a squirrel. You know what I mean?
right, exactly,
It's like I'm gonna go save my community, but I am my community.
right.
So I'm impacted by what's happening, but I'm also working on it. And I never step away from it. And I'm just in it all the time. And it's like that's also not good.
It's a spiral, and you will spiral. You will spiral, you will lose it, and
Because I
it's
definitely lost
hard
it.
work. Like, this is hard work in general. But it's like, I know, like, I always hear like we need more Black midwives. And yes, we do. However, we also need more Black midwives who know what inclusivity means and knows what intersectionality means and how it shows up, because
Hmm.
like the saying go, all skin folk and kinfolk. And I'm a true testament of that, being somebody not only who was hurt and was harmed by a Black midwife during childbirth. I was harmed while in school, in a sense of like not feeling seen, not feeling heard, and not feeling like I had a voice. And it was hard. That's very hard to show up and you thinking, oh, these are my people. So I want folks to also understand that Black midwives are definitely needed, but we are, everybody needs to show up in a sense of knowing that everybody is not heterosexual and cisgendered, and I'm being for real, because it's not quote a
Hmm.
white agenda of the pronouns and inclusive talk, and like, it's not. And I
Hmm.
hate when folks say that. It burns me up, because I'm like, I'm sitting here right now telling y'all what I'm experiencing, or my other folks are experiencing, who don't even want to have a baby because they can't go to a midwife they feel safe to have a baby with. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
And I
Get
think like
prenatal
the
care.
the
So
point that you're like bringing in is like the future of Black midwifery from the student perspective is being respected, right? And like
yes,
being honored, but also being taught how to respect and honor
yes,
others as well. Like in our
exactly.
complexities, in our intersectional identities, even in the things that we don't you can not completely understand something, but still have respect,
Yes.
you know? Like, so that's also part of the work. Agreed.
Yes.
So my last question for you, Miss Therapist.
Let me dig through that. Okay, go.
Mm-hmm. How are you taking care of yourself while doing all this work?
Oh, I literally have an accountability partner who will shut my laptop down. I'm all about Google Calendar. I set alerts on my phone and on my laptop. It's like, get off and rest. I meditate, I journal, like that, like meditation, that's my thing. I've been loving it since I was a kid. And I'm like, that's my time of peace. That's my time to connect within myself, talk to the ancestors, all that good stuff. So having that freedom to do that. And I also have a bomb, boss homie who respects the fact that I have a life and we all have a life, and this is not corporate and we don't do capitalistic ideals over here. Okay.
Mm-mm.
So just the checking in, like I have my community checking in on me to make sure that I'm not doing the most. But definitely like making sure
Even though
that
this boss homie person that you speak of, sometimes
yes,
you're like, because Mystique will have like their thing on like, notifications, the silence, and I'm like, notify anyway. Hello,
hey,
hello,
I
it's
broke through.
me.
What?
Yeah.
Hello.
I'm like, it's me. You should know it's me. I'm breaking.
Right.
Hello. And then it's not even always like work related. I'm just like,
Right.
what about this? Do you?
Exactly. So it's just like I had to schedule. Now it's just like I go with the flow, but I had to schedule in self-care. And when it came to that, I was like, I'm doing a little too much. I'm doing a little too much. So, and I'm also learning that, it's okay to have free time and not do nothing. Like I'm so used to like, okay, I'm resting, but I could do this, that, and the third. I'm literally
Mhm.
like,
Do
I'm good.
nothing.
I don't have to do a thing. Like I could sit here, read a book in peace, or just watch TV and I'm fine.
Mhm.
So that's how I
Mhm.
take care of myself. Like it took me a
Yeah.
while. It took me
And
a
when Mystique is resting, we'll also remind you that you need to rest, and we'll also tell you off about yourself, and we'll also
while.
be
Send you
like, no,
cute
but for real.
memes, cute TikTok reminders, I was like, and send. Like, hey,
Yeah,
you, what are you doing? Sit down.
yeah, yeah. So I love that. Anything else that you have like top of mind that you want to share, say?
Um, I would love that we have these talks more and expressing the sense of bringing also, the conversation that it's okay to quit. Quitting is not a bad thing. Like you stated earlier, like we have this set in our mind, like, oh God, you quit. And then, people think of, oh, I'm a failure. I let my folks
Mhm.
down. It's nothing wrong with quitting because I promise you, like sometimes, majority of times for me, when you quit and let something go that does not align with your purpose or is taking too much of yourself and is creating like yourself as a sacrifice, when you let that thing go, abundance just floods in. And it's not necessarily financial wise. I had abundance of rest. You hear me? I never in my life had so much rest and been peaceful with it.
Mhm.
And I expressed so much gratitude for that because I was like, I'm so used to being this type A personality, and I gotta my type A is like maybe like 20 to 30%, depending on the
Yeah,
day.
it never leaves, right?
Yeah,
But like
don't ever
there's a
leave.
healthy balance. There's benefits to being
Yeah.
type A, but when you have to like be in that mode 24/7,
Mhm.
your body's like, bro, we can't be this alert all the
Right.
time, right? Like
Like
we can't be
chill.
this organized, this alert, this like all the time.
Right.
Well, I always want to thank you for your time and your wisdom. And when you were talking about like the future of midwifery, I was like, oh, we got some shit to create.
We do, we do.
It's like, because yes, like midwifery that's inclusive, midwifery that's accessible, midwifery, maybe that a format that is, you know, more accessible to people, midwifery that is affordable, like midwifery like that is, you know,
Ooh.
like it's an express, like the students see expressions of themselves, you know, like
Mhm.
they're working with communities that they're, you know, want to work with. Like,
Exactly.
yeah. So I thank you. And then of course, if anybody wants to connect to you, how should they do that?
So if y'all are on Facebook, the Black Birth Healer, Instagram is at Black Birth Healer, TikTok is the Black Birth Healer. You can see my, you know, how I express myself. Um, I'm silly. Y'all will see it. I'm silly. I turn things that are very serious into something silly because, you know, the world is the world right now. But yeah, so y'all can follow me there. And that's it.
Thank you.